This is just a little bit of a interesting thingamajig that I picked up sometime in the past couple of years. It's, on the face of it, not particularly interesting. It's just a 1650 watt, 120 volt heating element. Except it's quite big for a 1650 watt element, and that's also somewhat of an odd power rating. Now, for comparison, I have this guy here. This is a 1440 watt element. The reason for that rating being 12 amperes at 120 volts, which is 80%, which is the maximum continuous load you can put on a 15 ampere circuit. But getting back to the original point, the reason for it being substantially long is what I suspect is this was originally a manufacturing mistake. Because if you take 1650 watts, multiply it by 3, you get 4950 watts, or pretty close to 5 kilowatts. Now, the thing is, the reason for that multiplication by 3 is that on a constant resistance, that's the ratio of increase in, or no, that's the amount, or that's the relative increase in power that resistance will dissipate when fed 208 volts, which is, of course, your phase-to-phase potential on a three-phase 120 volt, 208 volt system. So this is most likely a 5 kilowatt 208 volt element originally, except this is a bit on the small side for a 5 kilowatt element. It's actually more along the size of about a 4 kilowatt element or so. The 5500 watt elements would come almost, this bend would be almost at the end of the element, and this would be, again, a little bit longer. So most likely what they did is, because they had the equipment all set up to make these, rather than completely retool their line, they just slapped a new rating on the existing element. And of course, one good thing about that is because the per unit length power dissipation in this element is going to be a lot lower than in something like this. And so the element is going to last much longer, at least assuming it's decently made to begin with, which, given the quality of a lot of stuff nowadays, is a bit dubious. But from what I can tell, these are both American made, so, you know, there's some hope. But yeah, now of course the thing is you need a water heater that can fit one of these. Reason for these really short ones is these are intended for what are known as point-of-use water heaters, which are little tiny, you know, 2-gallon or 2.5-gallon ones that are basically intended to feed one appliance, usually something like a utility sink. Of course, one of these would be great from a reliability standpoint, but you need the tank volume that can accept an element that's, you know, a foot long, or close to it. But yeah, it's just a little bit of an interesting thing, and an interesting case study in basically making somewhat useful lemonade out of a processed lemon.